Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture Curiosities, the podcast where we tell each other stories from pop culture history. And usually we tell each other, like, usually one of us will have a story to tell the other one. But then occasionally, like with MILF Manor episode, and with this one, we have a shared trauma.
Oh, yes.
That we just need to talk about. So we're like, hey, we have that podcast about pop culture stuff.
We can talk about this.
Let's talk about it there.
We're going to talk about it.
So that's what we're doing today. When did we do that? It was like beginning of this year.
I want to say like I said like, sorry. I'm trying not to say like as much. I think it was, the beginning of the year around February, and it took up all of February plus some of April or March.
April. If we had been filming through April, I think we all would have.
Sorry, Imagines and Modelland blended together for me. So that was pretty much February to, I think, May. But I cannot remember. It was so traumatizing.
Yeah, it was bad. So we read Modelland, the book that we're going to be discussing today. And then I mentioned it in a video. And then a bunch of people went back and watched our VODs, and I felt guilty.
Brave souls.
Brave souls. Shout out to those of you who made it through the entire series that we did. But we decided, I think we promised in our first episode, and also back in the America's Next Top Model Cycles 1 through 3 episode, that we were going to just do this episode and then be done with Modelland, because it feels like we can never be done talking about it. But we've done the live read. It's gotten a dishonorable mention in a different video about bad kids books. This is its one piece of this is the Modelland video episode, however you're consuming this. If you're over on YouTube, you're seeing it in video form. Hey. If you're not, hey, we appreciate you too.
Thank you.
People who only watch us with their ears.
Or it's like, oh, turn down the radio. I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about Modelland. Do you want to tell them what Modelland is? We just need to jump right in because there's so much to say about it.
So basically, Modelland is a YA novel by the legendary supermodel, infamous Tyra Banks, because of some shenanigans pulled off on her on America's Next Top Model and her talk show, The Tyra Show. And it basically follows the adventures of Tookie Tookie the Forget-A-Girl with two different colored eyes. One is dirt brown and the other is mucus green, and she's a forget-a-girl, and all she wants is to become an Intoxabella, which is like the supermodel of the land, because you're only important if you're a supermodel. And she's like, I will never be, or sorry, saying like again, my bad. And she's just going, I want to become an Intoxabella, but no one likes her, and she doesn't think that's in the cards for her. But then a scout reaches out to her and takes her to the great and beautiful Modelland, which is on top of a mountain with a lot of dangers surrounding it, and begins her journey into becoming an Intoxabella.
Yeah, so Modelland is a YA novel, a young adult novel. It was Tyra Banks' first and so far only attempt into breaking into that particular genre of literature. Modelland was supposed to be a trilogy. It came out in 2011 at the height of the magical YA. The last Harry Potter movie had just come out. Hunger Games was really big. I think Divergent was currently out. Not the movies yet, but the books were really popular.
Yeah.
So and that was kind of the era of Maze Runner and all of those dystopian, at least pseudo-magical YA genre. And Tyra Banks was like, I could probably do that. And
try it, she did.
She gave it a good try. She she says that she worked on Modelland for 5 years. I looked it up because there is a ghostwriter credit that goes to Michael Solort. I'm sorry, I don't know how he pronounces his name. There is a ghostwriter's credit. But before anybody is just like, oh, well, she didn't write it at all. No, I think she definitely did. When she says she worked on it, I think she did write the majority of it. When we started reading this, I hadn't watched any America's Next Top Model. There's a lot of, once you start to get to know Tyra, like the brand, you're like, there's a lot of Tyra in this book. A lot of Tyra.
She has 2 self-insert characters in the book.
A third one is a potential also self-insert, but we're not sure. It's been thrown around that the Belladonna is also kind of a self-insert, but also I personally think that it's not. I think I have other opinions on the Belladonna, but we'll get there.
Yeah, the Belladonna.
So Modelland it still says on its Wikipedia. Yes, I'm looking at Wikipedia. Look, we're so tired. We've been covering this book so much.
You don't understand. Look, the VODs are like 8 hours.
How many did we do? 6? I think there's 6 VODs in that stream. We leave all the VODs up, so you can go back and watch it if you're brave enough.
You can listen to them before you come back to this podcast, or listen to this first and just tell everyone you listen to them.
But it's still listed as a trilogy. The first one came out in 2011. We have heard nothing from the other ones in the 12 years since that happened.
Yeah.
It's still listed as a trilogy, though, so maybe one day she will.
or maybe no one went in and edited it to where it's like, just kidding, it's not a trilogy, it's just a single book, it's fine.
Maybe it's a hopeful spirit that's just like, please, we want the other 2.
Or Tyra released the unpublished manuscript of 1,000 pages.
All right, I'm gonna read you guys the wiki formal, like, I think this is just like the, stock description of the plot, the summary. And then I'm going to give you my version of the summary.
Yes.
The Wikipedia says the plot summary is, quote, a young, awkward-looking girl by the name of Tookie de la Creme. That is her name.
Wait until you hear her mother's name.
When we were looking this up and I found it for like $3 or $4 on Thrift Books, and I read the name Tookie, I laughed. You were sitting there. We were sitting at my table, and I laughed. I was like, "That's her name, Tookie."
Yep.
I'm sorry if your name is actually Tookie. I'm sure it's lovely on you. I just, given everything else about this book.
Yeah, it's just like, what is happening?
It's like, what is happening? So the young, awkward-looking Tookie is invited to attend the legendary boarding school Modelland for a chance to join the Intoxibellas, the most celebrated models in all the world. Along the way, she meets a plus-size girl named Dylan, a 4'7" girl named Shiraz, and a girl with albinism. I don't know if we say the A term anymore. I've heard that it is and is not offensive, so... A girl with albinism, named Piper. We'll get into the offensiveness. We're not even almost there yet. Together, they form a strong bond, and they face the trials and tribulations of Modelland and endeavor to find the truth about why they were all accepted to it, and why a mysterious imposter seems to want nothing more than for them to be gone. That's the official description. And when you hear the official description, you're like, that sounds kind of offbeat. But, kind of just like any other YA novel, it kind of rings, there's points of, it wasn't out at the time of Modelland, but The School for Good and Evil, which is a genuinely great book. I think it's what Modelland wanted to be, honestly. It is, I was going to say it is a trilogy, but I think there's actually more than 3 books. It was very, very popular. That's the official summary. Here's my summary. There is a girl named Tookie, and she looks like Tyra Banks if one of Tyra Banks' eyes were brown. She's 15. Tyra Banks has talked about how she's based off of her as a young girl. Nothing weird about that. And Tookie is constantly talking about how she's ugly and everybody hates her. And you know what? Everybody does hate her. She not for like, hang on, there's a hair in my I'm so indignant about the heterophobia.
Oh, the heterophobia.
The hair is getting into my mouth. Tookie has one green eye and one brown eye. She's heterochromia, something that literally nobody has ever been upset about having, I don't think, ever. I get that, like, when you're a kid, you know, features that you have that are, you know, really admirable might feel embarrassing if, like, none of the other kids have them. But, like, this is the most, like, YA girl that I've ever read where it's just like, she's not like the other girls. Oh, what's wrong with her? She's too pretty. What is she gonna do?
She's a forget-a girl.
Yeah, she calls herself a forget-a girl, which doesn't get old at all. They don't say it too many times at all. Once would have been too many times, but they said it like 40 or 50 or 60 times, which is, you know, a good amount. I think.
You know, out of the 560 something pages, at least a good chunk of it was filled with forget-a girl.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to be too all over the place.
Yeah.
This book was originally, allegedly, 1,100 pages plus. The manuscript that Tyra Banks sent to her publisher was 1,100 pages plus, and they cut it down to 567, I think. When you read the book, I would give so much money to know what's in that other 500 pages.
But not like the actual pages, just like a synopsis of like what's included here.
No, I want the manuscript. I want to know if this is what made it into the book, then what had to be cut.
Oh, okay. Well, once you get a hold of that, I'll like, you know, take a day and be like, should I? And then be like, okay, let's read this. What's happening?
So we haven't told them anything crazy yet. We've just told them, you know, some like weak YA novel things, right?
Yeah.
People who've read YA novels are probably like, I've read worse. You haven't read worse. I mean, actually, I'm sure there is worse than Modelland, but it's...
We haven't found them yet.
I've spent 3+ years on the internet covering the weird, the offbeat, the campy. I have never seen anything like Modelland. I watched a movie and did a video on it once about a movie called Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny. That has exactly no plot. It involves Santa being stranded in Miami and then telling very terrifying like nursery rhyme stories to children before the ice cream bunny, Dos Ex ice cream bunny, just shows up and helps him. And then he goes home.
Oh.
It's a very weird movie. Tom Sawyer is in the movie. Thumbelina is there. Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk is in one version of it. There's actually 2 versions. There's a version where he tells them the story of Thumbelina and one where he tells them the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. This isn't what this podcast episode is about. Maybe we'll do like a Christmas episode on that one. But my point is, I've seen some weird stuff, but nothing is quite like Modelland. It just kept coming with the punches. And when you hear Tyra Banks talk about it, you almost feel bad for hating it. Or at least I did for like a second, because she's like, this is my baby. I'm so proud of it. And it's like, on one hand, good for her. She really tried. On the other hand, I have so many questions. I literally lost sleep at night trying to understand this book.
Oh my God.
I have woken up from nightmares being like, no,
what's happening? And, you know, reading the acknowledgement section, it's like, oh, why couldn't the book be written like this? Because, you know, Tyra's talking about she's thinking these different places where she's, you know, leaning over her computer, typing things out and looking out the window and seeing the beautiful the environments and city landscapes outside of her windows and she's thanking specific people for their assistance for it. And you're like, why couldn't the whole book be written like this?
Except for the part where she uses a slur.
Yeah. Again, I apologize for that.
No, Gabe was reading the acknowledgments and a slur just popped up on him.
Yeah. And I was just reading through and then Avery's just like, oh, and I was just like, oh. So again, I apologize for that. It's not my words. I was just reading what was on the page. I apologize for that.
No, I think everybody, I think Anybody who has had experience with the book is familiar. There's a lot, like I said before, there's a lot of offensive things about the book.
Oh, yeah.
She tried really hard, it felt like, to not be offensive, that she became offensive. Like, she was trying to be so inclusive that she somehow made it racist. I feel like we need to back up.
Yeah.
Because the thing with Modelland is that this podcast episode is going to be all over the place. The thing with Modelland that you have to know, okay, is that Modelland is a lot. Like, there is a lot. Like, when we were reading it, we kept adding trigger warnings. And it got to the point where I just had to say trigger warning all because it was literally going to take up, like, the whole screen. It was just a scrolling list of, like,
Hi, Perry.
Hi, Perry.
It was a scrolling list of Hello, Perry.
It was a scrolling list of just, like, oh, dear God.
Oh, is that on the list? We need to add that to the list.
It was a lot. So, Modelland, like I said, it's a dystopian YA novel. In this dystopian world that Modelland takes place in, everybody is destitute, and you have two options. You can either be a very rare Intoxabella, which is only for women, and you can be a supermodel and have all the money and all the cute boys and all the fame and fortune and all the things. Or you can be like literally everybody else who is poor and below the poverty line and working in a factory. Those are the two jobs. You're either the model or you're like, I don't even know, what are they making in the factory? The fashion? Like,
yeah, I think they're making the outfits.
So the outfits. So you can either like basically be in what is made out to sound like a sweatshop, or you could be a model. Those are the only two things. Allegedly.
Because that's the only jobs there are in life.
Modelland is this exclusive school. I'm going to use the term school loosely. They don't learn anything except being a model. It's very much inspired by America's Next Top Model. You can absolutely tell, like, the way that the girls are and, like, all that stuff.
The attitudes that people have.
Yeah. So it's like she clearly was like, it's like Hogwarts. But if Hogwarts was the least whimsical and most terrifying place on the planet. And there's several points in the book where characters are like, no, I don't want to leave Modelland. And it's like, why?
It's terrible. We haven't heard really that much positive stuff going on there.
Like in Harry Potter, and J.K. Rowling isn't really a great writer either, on top of being a terrible person. She's not the best writer in the world. But at least with Hogwarts, like, you know, Hogwarts is like this fantasy world where it's like, yeah, it's dangerous, but I would like to be there. Every kid wants to go there. I would not want to go to Modelland.
No one wants to go to Modelland. Most of the people who are in Modelland don't want to be there.
So I'm trying to take them through this as chronologically as possible. But here's the thing. Modelland is not exactly as linear as it could be.
I mean, we have to spend like 20 pages talking about like the landscape or the look of a place that we're never going to see again until like halfway through the book or nearly at the end of the book, and we don't even spend that much time there.
We spent 50 pages-ish in the beginning learning about her school that she leaves and we never see again, ever.
Yeah.
Maybe it was meant to be more important, like, if the trilogy had gone through, and, like, for some reason it would have been like, but it was so much, and we didn't need it.
Yep. Just some, or you put it best when you were saying how it was kind of like she had the idea for a theme park and worked her way back from that.
Yeah. It really did. When she opened well, we read it after she had opened Modelland, but when you learn that she has now opened Modelland, it's called a theme park. Some people call it an experience. From what I can tell, there's no actual, like, theme park attractions there, so I don't know what makes it a theme park. It's kind of just a photo op opportunity. Well, photo opportunity. That would be redundant, but you know what I mean. It's a photo op.
Yeah.
And I guess there's other things, but, like, it's really expensive, and no one actually wants to go from the looks of it, so very few people have actually done any coverage of the real-life Modelland. But it definitely, when you're when you're reading Modelland, when you realize that there's a real life theme park, a lot of things start to make sense, right? She goes into all this detail about like what the food court looks like and what this one building looks like and what this one tower looks like and, you know, the way that the rooms look. And it's clear that she was like thinking about it in terms of like, this will be a place one day. Like people will like this book and then this will be a place one day. That's the only way that it makes sense to me why she would make some of the writing decisions that she did. But okay, let's start getting into the other stuff. So Tookie de la Creme, that is her name. She is ostracized from her community for having 2 different colored eyes. Like, they literally treat her like a second-class citizen. It's very weird. Like, people just full-on, like, physically assault her at school, and all the adults are just like, hey, that's stupid, forget it, girl.
or at the beginning, she's, like, lying on the floor waiting for the bell, and then, like, people wouldn't step on her, and she's like, oh, if only they would notice me. But then her bully comes in and is like, you suck.
I forgot about that. She lays down on the floor, hoping to be trampled. And then they don't trample her. And she's like, oh, I'm just so forgettable. They won't do anything for me. And it's like, girl, are you okay? The answer is
no. Oh, and then another important part of Tookie's character is that she knows so many languages, but then they're made up languages. But then Tyra likes to throw in like Italian and French into the mix. And then a bunch of mixed up words that don't make, like forget a girl and other words that I don't care to remember. Not that they're inappropriate. I just don't care to remember because it's just the mashing up of words where it's just like, is this a cohesive sentence?
I remember when she made up a slur?
Yes. And
there are slurs in Modelland that are not real slurs. They're slurs that are made up for the specific, like, ethnicities of people in the specific ethnicities within Modelland. So Tyra Banks sat around and thought of slurs just to throw in there. And it's never, like, used as, like, a teachable moment or anything. It's not even, like... I hate to keep making Harry Potter references over and over again, but she clearly wanted to be the next Harry Potter. That's why. So, like, you know, when they're like, oh, she's a mudblood, right? That's like a whole, like... Again, not to give J.K. Rowling any credit, but, like, at least there's a narrative purpose for, like, showing how horrible those people are or whatever. I think that was the intention with making up slurs for certain ethnicities, and also ableist slurs.
Yeah, and they even used the M word in there too. So she's using.
They did. They use it's a mix. There's some real slurs and fake slurs.
And it's just like.
And I think it was intended to make the people using the slurs look bad, but she doesn't do it well. So it just feels like people are just saying slurs, and you're just reading the book, and we're reading the book on live, going, "Oh God, oh
am I supposed to be saying that?"
No, the amount of times we stopped ourselves and we're like, "Are we allowed to say this word?" I'm gonna hedge my bets and say no.
You know, people are going to go back and they're going to be like, you said this word. You mean the made up word that Tyra Banks made for her book? Yes. And it's for this person. And I'm offended and you're canceled now. And we're like, oh, no, please don't.
But, oh, God. I mean, if we're canceled, we can't read any more Modelland. So I'm kidding. Get out a ukulele. We're going to be canceled.
Oh, no. You show me that video. I still need to watch your video about that video. Everyone go to Avery Talks About Stuff and look up the video with the ukulele.
I'd say we'll make a different podcast about that whole situation. But so far, I mean, unless she does something else really stupid, I think all that's been said has been said, you know, but we'll see.
Cut to another podcast in the future. Guys, she did something else.
Yeah, she just comes up with an ocarina for the next apology. It's going to be wild.
Or let's see, going back to Tookie, I like one of the important parts is in the beginning is her being like, her crush. What was it? Theophilus.
We call him Theophilus. I think that's not how his name is supposed to be pronounced, but we decided that sounded better than the way his name is supposed to be pronounced, so we just changed it because nobody's names and half the words don't mean anything anyway. So
it's like the points and whose line is it anyway?
We hear so damn much about Theophilus. And he has no bearing on it's not even like okay, I'm gonna keep comparing it to other YA novels that are more established and just better. Whatever you think about them, they're definitely better than Modelland. Hunger Games. It's not even like a Peeta versus Gale like love triangle or like a Twilight love triangle with like Edward versus Jacob. It's just there's this one guy that she really likes at the beginning of the book who does not know she exists and never realizes that she exists. And he's gone after the first like 50 pages. Maybe you never see him again, but you keep hearing about him because Tookie is in Modelland going, man, I wish that one guy from school would kiss me. It means nothing. It has nothing to do with anything. We still haven't even gotten to the truly weird stuff. If they're still listening going, why is this sounds just like any other YA novel. Guys, it's not. Guys, it's not.
Oh, and I also had to bring up the fact that, Theophilios, he's running for like student council president, and then he has a badge and she has it and she's like, I love this so much, but then something happens and it like goes and it basically falls in the garbage, and it makes a point of her digging through the garbage, and because Tyra likes to mention food a lot, like as scripture.
Food in the garbage a lot. It was really disturbing the amount of times.
Yeah, and basically stuff had happened to this badge. I think it's like vote Theo, but somehow it turned into TOOKE, so I just call it the Tookie badge. and when our spoiler, when she goes to Modelland, she's allowed to keep a few things, and one of the things she keeps is this badge that says Tookie on it, and it's just like,
okay, so
that was like the beginning of the weird.
She also talks about how she has a 5 head a lot.
Yes, and she also, the way she describes her hair is probably not appropriate.
She says her hair has multiple personality disorder, which there's definitely better ways to just say you have kind of frizzy hair. I don't know. I don't even know what she was trying to say. Like, they're like, her hair has every texture. It's like kind of straight, kind of curly, kind of whatever. It's like that.
I'm just imagining like one part of it is straight, one part of it is curly, and one part of it is wavy. And it's just, does it switch every few minutes? That would be hilarious.
And here's the, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Here's the thing. Tyra says that she wanted to write this book for, girls who were going through like their awkward phase, who didn't feel good enough, all that stuff. That would be great. Except for she made it absolutely not readable to the target audience. It's barely readable for us, and we're adult people. Can you imagine an actual child? We'll get it. I don't even know. Every time I think I know where I'm starting. Yeah. So the tone shifts a lot. Everything is written in this, like, I keep calling it like the magical unicorn narrative. Like, there's all these made up words, and everything is like glittery, sparkly. It's like the vibe of like the way that it's written, the way that people talk to each other, the way that people think, like characters, their inner monologue. It's very like pink glitter gel pen, if that makes any sense. It's very like teeny bopper in that way. It feels like it's meant to appeal to like young girls. Like what are some of the there's a lot of like Tyra isms in there.
Smize.
Oh, God, that's the smize. If you don't know, because I didn't know when we started reading this, I knew smize was like a thing with Tyra Banks, like smile with your eyes. The smize is a physical thing. That is basically your literal golden ticket. Isn't it the golden ticket to Modelland?
Or it boosts your chances.
Your chances of getting a ticket to Modelland. So it's seen as like, I got a golden ticket. I'm sorry for how chaotic this is going to be. I'm sorry, Spencer. I'm sorry, everybody watching this. I'm trying to keep it as coherent as possible, but the book itself is not coherent. So, Tookie is an awkward teenage girl, but she's actually really pretty, but everybody treats her like a second-class citizen. She is a Tyra Banks insert character. Fine. Lots of writers have self-insert characters. I probably have them, like everything I've ever written. There's probably a way to do that well. I don't know if I did it, and I know that Tyra Banks did not really pull it off well. It's her first self-insert character. There's more than one.
Yep.
So Tookie is this awkward girl. Tookie Delacreme, her parents. Her parents. Can you tell them what their parents' names are?
Oh, gosh. I know her mom's name is Creamy Delacreme. And I can't remember her dad's name.
Crispy.
Crispy de la creme, creamy and crispy de la creme. And she also has a younger sister who's named Miracle.
Yeah, it really breaks the theme. Like, you know, if the little sister was like Cookie, right? Cookie, Tookie, Creamy, and Crispy.
Crispy, yeah.
The De La Creme family.
Oh, the de la creme family.
Her parents hate her.
Yep.
No, they just hate her. For no explained reason. It probably would have been explained in like the second or third of those trilogy books. But that didn't happen. So 560 something pages. We don't know why her parents hate her. They just hate her. It's implied heavily that her dad at least believes that she's not his kid. And so he resents her. But we never get any closure at all. We never find anything else out about her. There's a lot of threads that just don't get closed up.
That's mentioned in the Too Stupid to Hate video because
by Crimson Rogue. It's a great video.
Yeah, where he has a 3-hour he has a 3-hour video where he discusses, he kind of recaps everything that goes on in Modelland and gives his thoughts about it. And he's basically talking about threads that go nowhere or something that's brought up like in the very beginning of the book that doesn't come into play until 40 chapters later. Like spoilers, wingtips.
Oh, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like Chekhov's gun. If the gun was super faulty and went off like 2 movies after the gun.
Yeah, and you're like, oh yeah, that was a thing that happened.
That was a thing that happened 3 movies ago. So Tookie, her sister Miracle, is beloved by her parents, and Miracle sucks. Miracle is an annoying, spoiled little sister. There's nothing unique about Miracle. There's nothing in her personality that's like, oh, she's this way because of this. There's no motivation. There's no whatever. She just is a little kid that sucks. And her parents suck. And her parents love Miracle and they hate Tookie. Even though Tookie is perfect and does nothing wrong. She is a Mary Sue.
To the nth degree. To
the ends of the earth and back. Star Trek reference. You knew that, right? That was originally came from the Star Wars fandom in the 70s. The concept of a Mary Sue.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, it came from fan fiction. Somebody wrote a satirical fan fiction that based off of all these fan fictions that they were seeing where like the self-insert girl is like beloved by everybody on the ship. And the character's name was Mary Sue.
Oh.
But anyway, don't they get the smizes, the golden ticket type things? Don't they get them through the water supply?
Yeah, it's just like, water use increases exponentially and people literally leave their faucets on and they like plug up their bathtub so just in case it comes out and so much water is used during that time, but it's never explained why it comes through the water.
Yeah, I was going to say we never find out why. Like it's almost like it's just mentioned in a paragraph that it comes through the water.
Yeah, and I guess that leads into when Tookie is at home and her mom's like, I want some tea, and Tookie stutters stutters because she's so scared of Creamy, she stutters through her words sometimes when talking to her, where her mom's like, make me some tea, and Tookie's like, but you don't like tea. Well, make it for me anyway. And so she goes to make it, and
then she gets the smize, and everybody's like, it must have been for Miracle. But it wasn't? It was, but it will get there. Spencer's probably so confused when he's editing this right now. I'm sorry, Spencer.
Sorry, Spencer.
Okay, so this is a good time to mention since you brought up the dynamic between Tookie and her mom, Creamy. Creamy. I'm not over it yet. So Creamy is a very abusive mother. And abuse in every single way comes into play. You know how I just said that this is like the sparkly magical unicorn gel pen, like feels very like catered to 13-year-olds in the way that it's spoken and the way that people speak and the way that people behave. Everything else about the book is incredibly inappropriate for that age demographic.
I mean, I was trying to find the appropriate time to bring up Lizzie.
Yeah, so while we're here, trigger warning, by the way. let's say skip just like a few minutes. Spencer will put a timestamp, but if you're listening just on audio, just skip like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We just need to talk about all of the various abuses.
Yeah.
Every kind of abuse happens in this book. Every kind of triggering thing. Like, think of a triggering thing right now. You do it. I'm doing it.
And it's in there.
It's all in there. I'm trying to think of one thing that isn't in there that would, like, upset somebody. It's all in there. And not in, like, we're being real and being honest with children kind of way. It's like, the kids should not be reading this, in my opinion, kind of way. Every kind of abuse happens. Sexual assault happens, verbal abuse, physical abuse, self-harm, because Lizzie, the best friend at the beginning of the book, who we kind of don't hear from after like the first 60 pages or so, she self-harms, and there's several other characters at Modelland who also self-harm.
Oh yeah, and especially with her, or Dylan, or basically she has a moment where
Dylan does, but also CL does because of that one.
Oh, yes.
Basically, the mentor character, who we'll get into in a second, who's Tyra Banks' other self-insert character, Tookie finds her completely self-harming at one point, and then it's just, they don't ever talk about it again.
Yeah, and Tookie writes a note that it's like, you're crazy. I used to look up to you, and the way you're behaving is gross.
Yeah, we're supposed to not like CL because she's self-harming. It's weird. Or maybe we are, but like maybe we're supposed to be like naive. I don't know. I really think Tyra Banks wrote this book. I think she was inspired by a lot of like the shady stuff that she has personally seen in the modeling industry. And if she had stuck to her guns and made it like a much more like adult geared horror novel, we say this all the time. If she had straight up gone for horror, we'd be talking about how she's like this uncut gem of a talent in the writing world. Seriously, because it's terrifying. I had nightmares about it.
I mean, I like, after hearing about the one creature on the mountain, I was just like, oh, there could have been a whole book about someone trying to travel up the mountain, and that would have been amazing just by
terrifying.
Yeah, and just the imagery that she was able to come up with during that time.
We'll get to the monsters in a second, but I just wanted to bring up the like self-harm. There are other triggering parts, but since we're here, I just wanted to bring up all the self-harm at once, just so that if people don't want to hear about that, we can skip it. There will be other triggering topics, but we'll have to get into that later. I'm sorry. We're trying to keep it as linear as possible. So anyway, her friend who is going through it, they're going to run away together. But then Tookie gets a smize, which is, again, like the golden ticket. And then she's like, it's surely not going to be for me, so we're just going to give it to the sister. And then there's this whole campaign, like, where is CL? Where is CL? Because CL, who is the second Tyra Banks insert character, she is the most famous super star of this entire universe. She is the Intoxibella. That is like the most. She's a 7/7. Isn't that what they call it?
Yep. And because they have like the Intoxibellas can have 7 different abilities, and if you have all 7 of them, then you're the 7/7.
Can you name all 7 abilities?
No,
I don't think I can.
I just know there's the camouflage, the teleporting, excite to buy, men love you.
Yeah, one of their superpowers is just they can predict the future fashion trends, which feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because if everybody's like, oh, they said it's a fashion trend, so it must be a fashion trend next year, that just, I don't think you need any power for that. People are just kind of giving you the power.
Yeah.
They also have a superpower where men are always want them.
Yeah.
Which is a weird we never see her use that superpower, and I'm not even sure I would want to see that superpower be put into use.
Oh, but we have to save the best for last with the best to him bros.
Oh, God. Okay, so CL, who is the biggest superstar, she is a Tyra Banks. Like, if Tookie is the way that Tyra Banks sees her younger teenage pre-fame self, CL is the way she sees her current self. Very edgy, misunderstood, and famous. And also like a scapegoat for the industry. You get that? I feel like when I hear Tyra Banks, and this is just my personal opinion from what I've seen, what I've heard, I feel like Tyra Banks sees herself as like an outcast of the modeling industry, which is strange to me because she's one of, in my mind, one of the most famous supermodels. Like that's like the whole thing, but like CL is this character that like the rest of the industry hates. There's a lot of times on America's Next Top Model and on her show Tyra, remember that, where she would talk about how much like the industry like had it out for her and stuff like that, and like the Naomi Campbell stuff.
The whole I suggest everyone go watch the Naomi Campbell episode because that kind of provides a lot of insight into Tyra's mindset and maybe why she reacts the way she does to certain things, because she's like, oh, or it's like, Naomi Campbell, it's your fault, but also the fashion industry pitted us against each other because you can only have one black woman. You can have all the blondes and brunettes, but you can only have one black woman. And so the fashion industry would kind of pin them together and compare them, and people might be whispering in the other's ear saying things that might not necessarily be true.
And I think that's absolutely true. And I think that's something that the industry put both of them through. I don't think that's like their fault or whatever, but it's just like I find it very interesting because you can tell that Modelland is like the Tyra Banks. It feels like a trauma dump of a book. And we said to ourselves, to each other, is Tyra okay? Over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because I hope Tyra's, I walk away from Modelland truly being like, I hope the person who wrote this is doing well. Because I feel like you have to have, at least in the past, not done well at all to write Modelland.
Yeah.
Not just in like it's horror. So like I feel like, concerned for anybody who would write horror. I mean, like the way that it talks about like the insidiousness of the industry and the way that the characters that are clearly supposed to be Tyra hate themselves so much.
And hate each other.
They hate each other. Yeah, the one Tyra Banks hates the other Tyra Banks. You talked about how, like, if they ever made a movie, God forbid. Actually, no, God willing. I would love to see a movie.
I would love if,
It's going to have to be Tyra and Tyra. They're going to have to, like, de-age her. Like, they're going to have to use, like, the Star Wars technology to, like, make her look younger so she can play the 14-year-old Tookie because nobody else could.
Exactly. Oh, side note, one of the other Intoxabella powers is called 30 Never, and it's like you never look like you age past 30. So we have 5 that... Because there's the portal, the chameleon, 30 Never, Excite to Buy, and the men love you.
Yeah. So,
but side note, yeah, it's like we both can't wait for the Modelland movie starring Tyra Banks.
So, what is the big event where they all get chosen from? What is it called?
I think it's like the Day of Choosing or something like that.
Or
Day of Reckoning, not Day of Reckoning. It's like the Day of Choosing or something like that.
It sounds so ominous, but also very generic. It's something like that, yeah.
Where it basically all the teenagers I believe
compete for the adult supermodels' attention so that they'll pick them and take them to Modelland.
Yeah, there are scouts that kind of go through the different areas there's Metopia where Tookie's from, and there are other different locations like the Boobig Teak and Candelabra and Sans Calor.
Oh, we'll get to that in just one second.
Yeah.
But real quick, so all of these teenagers are like literally tripping over themselves, tripping over each other to get the attention of these supermodels so that they can be scouted to go to Modelland. Up on the top of this foreboding hill, where the normal... My phone is going off like crazy. I'm sorry. My mom just texted dumb fuck. I don't know what that was in reference to. We're going to get to that later. Yeah. Anyway, so, like, the normal person will never set foot anywhere near Modelland. All these girls want to be in Modelland so that they're not lower, the lowly working class, God forbid, because this is a dystopian society. And sorry, just checking to make sure. We've already been recording for 45 minutes. I'm sorry, Spencer.
Sorry, Spencer.
So the CL, the most famous supermodel in all the world, has been missing, and there's like this whole campaign where like people put up flyers and things that says, "Where is CL?" Like she's just gone missing. She was the most famous person in the world, and then she just disappeared one day. But the day of choosing, or whatever, I think that's correct. It shows up. Who gets chosen? But Tookie. Plot twist. She gets chosen, and it turns out that the person choosing her and the other girls that will become like her crew of friends, the like band of misfits, it's CL. And everybody's like, "Oh my god, it's CL. Where did she come? Where's she been this whole time?" So yeah, go ahead, talk about the different countries, because there's Metopia, which it's Metopia. It's like everybody's super self-centered. Like that's where Tookie's from.
There's also Boo Big Teak,
which is like the girl that they pick up there. Her name is Dylan, and she's supposed to be like this like
plus size country girl who has like eight siblings, or like 4 younger brothers and 4 younger sisters.
Yeah, and where they pick her up from, it's basically a big Walmart that people live in. Like literally, that's where they pick her up from. Her hometown is basically a big box store that people also live in. There's a lot of things where I'm like, if this had only been refined, it actually could have been a really good satire of like a lot of different things. Like, the American South is a big Walmart that everybody lives in. That's just kind of funny, right? If that had been like tweaked a little bit, it could have actually worked. But anyway, who did you picture when you were picturing Dylan? Because I was picturing like, very blonde, very like stereotypical like Texas girl, like.
Stereotypical. Well, howdy there. I can't think of any like Taylor Swift.
Oh boy.
I don't know. And also Dylan has this disorder where if she gets super startled, she faints.
I forgot about that.
And it only comes up one more time, but it's like, oh.
I forgot about it because it's so unimportant to the story. The Swifties are gonna hate. I'm
sorry. Like, I think Southern on my first thought was it's Taylor Swift when she was in her country music phase. I'm sorry.
In her Taylor Swift self-album era.
I've only been watching anime recently. I can't think of any. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
Here, Spencer, can you bleep out Taylor Swift's name? You don't have to. Everyone say thank you, Spencer. But oh gosh, I'm trying to. Yeah, she has the fainting disorder that only comes up once, but then there's a point near the end where you're like, this is very startling. What's going on here? What's happening?
So they pick up Dylan after they pick up Tookie, and then they pick up Shiraz. Shiraz is 4'7", as the wiki says. They call her the real life derogatory term for a little person. The one that starts with M, but they also call her made-up ableist slurs that basically mean the same thing. She's also from...
Candelabra.
Yeah, she's from... it's supposed to be some foreign country, and the running bit is that she doesn't speak English very well, which feels strange. It feels a little mean, right? All the other characters that are from all over the world, they all speak perfect English except for this one girl who's like always getting ableist slurs thrown at her, and the big joke is that her English is broken, and that's funny, and it just feels disrespectful. I don't know. It's just there's so much going on in this book. But they pick up all these girls, and then CL lands and is like, I picked you all out to be special. We find out that CL is rebelling by picking the weirdo girls, because all of these girls are not Intoxibella material. Tookie has a green eye, for God's sake.
And a brown eye.
And then, like, Shiraz is short. Oh, also, I didn't forget about, but Piper. Piper has albinism. I don't know if they do say it, because it's in the wiki. The country she comes from is called Sans Calor.
Yep, and
it also feels like a somewhat derogatory take on, I guess, a country in like Africa. You know what I mean? Because like they're like, oh, they have this weird language with like
Guttural
the clicks and like, and it just sounds a little too close to like real life languages from Africa. And I'm like, you can't just put a fake name on it and then have it be okay to say it. You can't say that. It's like there's one country called Chakra that's not India. It's not India. They have a place where they make movies that sound a whole lot like Bollywood.
But it's not.
And all of the culture sounds Indian. But they call it chakra, so you can make fun of it and make Indian jokes now, Tyra. It's okay. It's not racist anymore.
Well, I
said very sarcastically, don't do that.
Oh, and then the part that I was saddest on is because I never got to do the accent, but there's a professor, or there's a teacher from the land down under, didgeridoo.
And doesn't the teacher, she wears a 10-gallon hat, she throws knives at everybody. She has like knives and snakes with her everywhere, and then doesn't she also have like feet that like can be used to like bounce on like a kangaroo, so she's just like bouncing around like a kangaroo? Did I make up that last part in my head?
I feel like there was something relating to a kangaroo in there.
It was just the most aggressively Australian stereotype.
Yeah, and
everybody was a stereotype of a fake country. Tyra was like, if I change the names of the countries, then no one can call me racist.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was very weird.
Just a little bit.
Also, do you remember when CL first lands with them and they think they're going to be sacrificed?
Oh yeah, because they heard stories about how there are some individuals that are taken to be sacrificed to the monsters on the mountain.
That's not even the most disturbing part of that scene. The most disturbing part is that CL, the adults that recruited them, just changes out in front of them.
Yeah,
and children.
And like it. There's no like silhouette. It's like no, she fully changes in front of them.
Yeah, we get a description. It's weird. We didn't like it.
We did not.
There's a lot of that, by the way. Also, here's your second trigger warning. Sexualization of minors.
There was if you watch the VOD, you'll hear a lot of Tyra, she's 15.
There's a lot of like, I was telling Spencer, I would get off stream every week that we were reading this. I would get off stream and I would recount the highlights or lowlights to Spencer, the weirdest parts. And he'd be like, this just sounds like a weird fetish thing. Like, this just feels like they tried to pass off a weird fetish thing as a kid's book. Because there's, like, all kinds of things where, like, the guy, not Theophilus, the guy that she meets, Bravo, which every time I picture him, I can't picture what his face looks like because I'm just picturing the Bravo logo, like the channel.
The channel.
on like a walking human man body. But like his head is just the Bravo logo. So that's what I'm picturing. But the guy that she actually ends up having a two-way relationship with is named Bravo. He spends a lot of time sucking her thumb.
Oh my gosh, I had forgotten about that until
his thumb in her mouth. And I mentioned this in my Miranda Sings controversy video about like the inappropriate kids books, because Tyra Banks says that this is a book for young girls.
And
there's a lot of like he's focused on her feet a lot. There's a lot of mentions. There's a whole scene where 15-year-old girls swim half naked in whipped cream and then they shower with their teacher present. Do you remember this?
I remember them eating or like them eating the food, but I remember they went into the place where they were like in a see-through box essentially, and that's how they like showered and stuff. She was with Dylan and I can't remember her name. Her friend with the headbanger on. Yeah,
the teacher who was aggressively Australian was also with them though.
Oh.
Yeah. There's like the guys and girls, teenagers having to like wrestle naked. You remember that?
Or I remember they were like in their like gladiator outfits that was like underwear for both of them, and like some accessories or something.
There's a character who they make lots of jokes about her being homeless and eating out of the trash, which is a whole other thing.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about her friend who is very promiscuous and is also 15.
Isn't that the same character that's always... Is that a different character than the one that's always eating out of the trash? The one that hates her? Because she's like, I know that you're actually living on the street. You can't fool me.
Or there's Zarpessa and her friend who is very promiscuous and says very inappropriate things, who is also 15.
She says very inappropriate things. She's 15. There's literally a part where they're running on like the runaway what is it called? The runaway run walk or the
Or I think, or
they're in runway walking class, and the one
Yeah.
girl is running, and the narration says that this 15-year-old almost made running pornographic because of the way she was running sexually.
Oh, and side note, there's a narrator that kind of
Comes
leaves.
and goes.
Yeah, but we call the narrator Billy Porter.
Billy Porter would like to be excluded from this narrative. I haven't seen it.
Sorry, Billy Porter.
We couldn't figure out like the narrator's like tone and attitude. They leave. They're there and then they leave and they show back up like 3/4 of the way through the book and then they leave again and we never hear from them again. It's never explained who this person is. They're addressing us directly. So it goes from being just like a narration in the third person to like a second person narration where they're like, "Hey reader, did you hear about the time that Tookie did this and she went to all these classes and she met that cute boy that always wanted to put his fingers in her mouth even though she's 15?"
She got a splinter, so you gotta just put it in your
Suck
mouth.
that puppy out.
Oh gosh.
Do you remember the part where she drooled all over the guy's hand and the mean girl said that she mouth pee-peed on him?
I do not remember that. I just remember when she sees Bravo after the mastication class and he like makes a gesture at his nose and she sees like mucus Cool Whip. And
again, this is a 15-year-old. These are 15-year-old characters. This book is made for, according to Tyra, younger girls. And on her book tour, there were tons of like girls, like 12 or 13-year-old girls there, like young people. So like, it's incredibly concerning to me that this is what she put in the book.
Yeah. And I just remember there was one part where, where it's just like, this is for kids, where they have to go down like, I think it's a zip line where it's just basically the zip zap. And there's one point where a girl, she jumps in one and her hair catches on one of the zippers in the zip zap. And then by the time she comes out of the zip zap, the, head wound or, trigger warning, red body juices where, head wounds like to bleed more profusely, even though it's not as bad, where she comes out of this side character comes out of the zip zap and she's like covered in red body juices and everyone's freaking out and she's like, "I'm okay." And it's just like, what is happening?
Well, and it's also like, so, okay, let's get back to the main story. Tookie and her new friends, who are not model material, they tell us over and over again that they're the riffraff. Everybody else is like, why are these people here? Anyway, they show up, they get into their door. Well, they get into like the big entry, like the big atrium where the belladonna talks to them. The belladonna is a living statue, kind of. How would you describe the belladonna?
Or she speaks through the statue where like no one has seen her. She's a figure that only few have ever spoken to or seen in real life.
She sings.
Oh.
Remember she sings their instructions and I didn't know how to sing it because I couldn't figure out how to count on any kind of beat because it didn't make any sense.
Oh, and is that before or after Applause?
Oh, Applause is okay. Body horror is really big in this book too. Like if she had committed to the body horror, could have been something great because there was so much body horror. To start off light, there's a character called Applause. He's one of their teachers. Picture a human body with a hand for a face. When I was describing this character to Spencer, all he could picture was Pan's Labyrinth with the eyes. That's not what this character is. This is a person. But a hand, like a head-size hand, is where their head should be, and their face is on the hand. And they clap. Don't they, like, clap by, like... Yeah, they're, like, smacking themselves in the head. It's really weird. Who do you think Applause was supposed to be?
Probably J. Manuel. Mr. J.
Mr. J. Okay, fair. Is he the one who taught them Kara class?
I know the runway or Nars is Miss J, but which one is Kara again? I know there's War of Words, but that's not either.
Was it Kara? Doesn't it just mean face? Like it's just the posing one where like they make them look at the most disgusting like body horror, like
Oh, it's
animals being ripped apart, and then they have to like smile through it as like a class because models have to conceal their emotions.
Oh yeah, it's like act or do the opposite of what I tell you. Like where if I say happy, you do angry, and you have to do it, and you're on a boat, and you have to face all these distractions and whatnot. That might have been Mr. J as well.
So there's another character who's described, and this is part of why I've lost sleep thinking about this specific character. They describe this character as 3/4 man, 1/4 woman. My question was also Spencer's question when I told him this, which is every other person's question when I first tell them about this character. Everybody goes, which quarter? Is it just the quarter with the boobs? Like what 1/4 woman? Is it like the face is divided and then there's like feminine features on like 1/4 of the face?
Just one eyelash and eyeshadow on one eye. I just thought of it as like a metaphorical thing where it's just like
I thought of that at first too, but they kept saying it.
Or we were confused. We were thinking, is this character non-binary?
But then all the non-binary people in our chat were like, we don't want this character. I'm like, I understand. I'm just trying to understand in the most generous way possible how this happened.
Or I'm just imagining Miss J, where she has long, elegant fierce legs. So maybe that's the 1/4 woman.
Does Miss J use she/her pronouns like actively?
I don't. Throughout the run of America's Next Top Model, when everyone was using Miss J, people tended, or everyone, or most of the individuals tend to use she/her pronouns with Miss J, but I do not know whether Miss J goes by, or J. Alexander goes by she/her pronouns.
Okay. I'm just thinking
if that makes sense.
I've heard watching the show people use both, and I wasn't sure if like I wasn't sure. And it was also a while ago, so you know, they might identify differently now than they did back when they were on the show. I don't know. I just, don't want to use the wrong pronouns, so just genuine question. Anyway, there's a lot of characters that are just, oh my god, the roller skating nurses.
Oh, the purses.
The nurses are called purses because of course they are. When you get sent to the infirmary, they are on roller skates. They're not wearing roller skates. They are they're like a race of life that is born with roller skates for feet.
Oh yeah, and it's like, or sorry for using like again. That's the only place where they can only work in Modelland, and you learn how there are people who don't fit the status quo that work at Modelland because it's the only place where they can be. And there's also the mannequins, where it's the individuals who didn't have what it took to become Intoxibellas.
They got accepted into Modelland and couldn't cut it, so they're now like subservient to the people that could cut it and are supermodels. Yeah, there's a lot of like hinting that there's all these races of humans in this world that are like being hunted. It's very dark.
Oh, we have to mention the Legizzards.
Oh yeah, you go. You talk about the Legizzards.
So essentially, the Legizzards are a race of lizard individuals, where their main food source is the liver, or their favorite cuisine is the liver of the people of Sans Calor. So
people with albinism.
Yes. So basically, you learn later on there's a Legizzard who they don't give him the nicest of names, who's basically wanting to get to Modelland so he can find Piper and eat her liver.
Yeah, no, he has he walks with a little bit of a hunch. And Tyra so sensitively gave this character the nickname, I'm so sorry, Hunchy.
And I'm just thinking, and I believe we talked about how the Legizzard is one of our favorite, or is one of the least egregious characters, because they're just trying to, do what their instincts are telling them to do. They're not.
Pretty much everybody in this book is horrible. Somebody said, one of my mods said, at the beginning of the book, CL, the super famous Intoxibella, who's one of Tyra's self-inserts, she's incredibly frustrating, but she's also the least frustrating out of all of them. So you learn to deal with her. And I was like, what does that mean? And now I'm looking back and I'm like, I know it. I get it now. I totally get it.
Yep.
Yeah, so they get to Modelland. They're trying to fit in. They're taking all these weird classes.
First I wanted to mention how, first of all, their dorm is called the D.
Oh God, I forgot about this.
And I feel this needed to be mentioned, but remember the one morning where she wakes up and she doesn't feel really good and no one feels really good?
No.
And then it's all explained and it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so first of all, their dorm room is called the D, and there's a lot of jokes about these 15-year-old girls going back to the D every night, which felt unnecessary. It really wouldn't have been a very top-tier joke if the characters were adults either, but it makes it worse that they're children.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't have been morally wrong, it just would have been a dumb joke, but, feels morally wrong when they're literally children. Oh, by the way, time is not measured by time in Modelland.
It's measured by colors.
It's measured by colors. Why? We don't know.
And neither do they. They have, there's a whole paragraph / several pages dedicated to how everybody is so confused by the way that they're telling time that they have to take remedial classes and they still don't understand, and it's never brought up again, really, except for like, oh, I need to go and half past turquoise.
Yeah, at Lavender, straight on the dot, I have a mastication class. I think that's a real line. Not verbatim, but like basically that's the line.
Probably.
It's a lot. I think, and Tyra just thought it was like quirky and like whimsical, but it's not whimsical. It's just confusing.
Yeah, Tyra was very much trying to be whimsical, but it turned into not whimsical and horror.
Horrifying, yeah. So anyway, that's not the weirdest thing that happens in time-wise. Like you said, there's that one morning where everybody wakes up and none of them feel good. They all have sudden onset periods because periods are plot relevant. People in the chat were telling us this, and it's not that I didn't believe them. If you guys are out there watching, I did not believe you. I just was trying to wrap my mind around how you could be telling me the truth. I was like, they can't be memeing. It's too specific, right? It's too specific and too constant to be showing up in the chat for it to just be like an inside joke. But how? So here's how periods are plot relevant. In Modelland, because Modelland is just for girls, or, I'm sorry, people assigned female at birth, let's say that, people with uteruses, they, on their first full day of Modelland, are magically made to all have their periods on the same day and go through like a morning of classes with like the worst period you could imagine. And then they're told that their periods stop, and the same magic that made them all have like sudden onset period has now permanently taken away their ability to have periods. They can still get pregnant, which is also plot relevant, but they don't have periods because according to the higher ups at Modelland, this way they can be sure that they don't use their period to get out of stuff, which people with periods... you know how people with periods are just always using them to get out of stuff and not like, going to work like half dead for like a quarter of their lives.
Yeah, it's just I'm just very confused because I feel like I'm more educated than most men, but it's still just very confusing for me. And it's just like
their
why?
Reproductive systems still work perfectly. They go out of their way to say that, and it's plot relevant, like I said. But they don't have... I don't even want to waste my time wondering how that's possible if you no longer are having periods.
I'm just imagining down the road, Tyra is going to be like, oh yeah, they take it, or it's just like, oh, what happens to... Or... what happens to the egg? I don't know. And it's just like, oh, Modelland's been taking them away so that they can create the perfect Intoxibella without having to bring people in, and they can designer baby their own. They can designer baby their own Intoxibellas. And I'm just thinking,
honestly, I would not. That would absolutely be something that would happen. I think if she did the second and third one. If that does not happen, it's because she saw this podcast and was like, shit, Gabe found me out. I gotta rework that.
but the scientist in me is just like, okay, how's that going to work? Because, or it's just like, oh, okay, so something has to happen there. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are like, but how can that be possible? And so I try not to think about it too much, so I can't like panic. And I'm just, I'm a man. I shouldn't be caring.
That's the whole slogan for Modelland, or it could be. Don't think about it too much so you don't panic.
What is happening? Don't panic. But it doesn't make sense.
We're not even done talking about why periods are plot relevant, but I have to circle back around. So basically, Tookie is at this school. She says she loves it. I don't know how you could, because nothing good happens to her at this school at all. She just goes through more and more trauma. Oh, do you remember the punishment for girls that leave Modelland of their own free will?
Oh, yeah. Basically, their faces are aged 50 years. Isn't it?
I think so. Like their like they don't live any less long, but they are going to now, instead of being 15, they now look 55.
Oh, yeah. That's also kind of a plot point where if you reach a certain age, you're kind of discarded by society.
Which is like, could have been a whole like a contemporary observation on the modeling industry and how it treats women. But it just wasn't done very well.
Because, yes, because the way they show it the first time is they basically have a character who literally her only personality trait is, I miss my boyfriend. I want to see my boyfriend. And I believe this might be based off Nicole from Cycle 1 of America's Next Top Model, because her plot line was kind of my boyfriend. And they edit it to make it seem as though she only cared about her boyfriend and not the competition. And so they were just thinking, oh, you're not taking this seriously enough, so we're just gonna boot you out. But basically this one girl's only personality trait is, I want to see my boyfriend again. And so she hops the hedge, or no, she hops the stone wall, and it's like they can see through the stone wall, isn't that
they can see through it when somebody goes to their side, so they can humiliate them for being old now.
Yeah. And there's a lightning strike and she turns and they see her face has aged significantly, and she's going, no, wait, I want to come back. No. Oh, and also when they first get to Modelland, they go through a lot of these tests where when they get the makeup put on and they look ugly, and it's like, oh, you can go out this exit door and you get to go home and stuff. And then a bunch of people go through and you just hear, oh, wow, it's so amazing over here. Everything's great, to try to like lure them out and stuff. And
Do you remember when they like punished them for not wearing for buying knockoff handbags because they said they were like common thieves for stealing from the designers? And I'm like, what a strange take to have in the book that's clearly supposed to be like she wanted it to be a criticism of the modeling world. What a strange take, right?
Yeah, making people suffer for having to have knockoff things.
And again, maybe she meant that to be like, isn't this person ridiculous for telling them that? But again, it's not conveyed very well, because I'm sitting here all these months later still genuinely wondering what she meant. So just from like I'm not a literary critic, but just from like a media literacy standpoint, I end up being left so confused by Modelland. We're not done.
We are very much not done.
Nope. So
we haven't really even gotten to Zarpessa yet, who's ginger, and I don't appreciate that.
Oh, I forgot about Zarpessa. So Zarpessa, you can talk about Zarpessa, because I don't think I remember her that much.
Basically, she's Tookie's bully who basically quote unquote calls her out for her hair not fitting into normal beauty standards. She makes fun of her eyes. She makes fun of how tall she is. And Zarpessa gets mad at her because she realizes Tookie has a crush on Theophilus, and so she bullies her.
Oh, yeah, because Theophilus is her boyfriend, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I like how I'm asking you like I've never read the book.
and so there's also a point where Lizzie and Tookie come across a bunch of dumpster divers, and it's revealed that Zarpessa is apparently not as rich as everyone thinks she is. She puts on an air that she is, and that she basically goes dumpster diving. And it's pointed out multiple times that, oh, she likes garbage food.
She likes the garbage. Like, she's not just eating the food to survive. She likes the garbage food. Because when they get to pick whatever food they want magically, she likes the garbage.
Yeah, and the professor from Didgeridoo is like, oh, this is the kind of food you have, or this is the problem, or this is the kind of problem with the food you have, and Zarpessa gets all of them because she's just eating stuff that just isn't good for her. And then there's a point where everyone's getting their roommates because it's 4 people to a room, and Zarpessa is Tookie's roommate, and so Zarpessa likes to mess with Tookie. And there's a point where in your dorm rooms during the night, everybody except for Sans, Tookie, and her 3 BFFs have a light over them that basically puts them in the best light, and Zarpessa's is like a spotlight, and it's Tookie, Dylan, Zarpessa, and one other individual that I can't remember her name. She wears the headbanger because of tragic backstory. And so Dylan and Tookie don't have one, and Zarpessa and their other roommate does, and Zarpessa bullies Tookie because of it. And there's also on the runway training, Zarpessa does a really good job, and Zarpessa seems to be doing so well, and Tookie doesn't, and Zarpessa's like, haha, you suck. And then there's the what's the name of the cloth that they have to wrap around them that is the thing that gives them the powers?
Oh.
Because they have a piece of cloth that they have that basically is what gives them their powers, and they have to like utilize it. And basically Zarpessa steals Tookie's and is like, oh, I brought this yellow dress and I switched out yours for this useless fabric. So it's just relentless bullying from Zarpessa, and it's just
it's a lot.
Yeah.
Also, what else was I gonna say? Oh, do you want to talk about Tookie's favorite food? Well, first let me say, we think Tyra is comfortable making fun of people that live on the streets because she was homeless for that one day.
For the one day on the Tyra show. She understands. Oh, and she had that one photo shoot in Cycle 10 of America's Next Top Model where she was talking about how she was inspired by living or being homeless for a day, that she brought in 3 homeless models for a homeless photo shoot type deal.
Okay.
So anyway, sorry.
But anyway, Tookie's favorite food is whipped cream. Do you know anything about the Tyra Banks lore much better than I do? Do you know why it's is there like a reason why it's whipped cream? That I would understand if I knew more about Tyra Banks as a person. Side note,
Tookie hates chocolate, so that's an instant red flag for Tookie.
Yeah, I keep chocolate on hand and I call it my Tookie repellent now.
No offense to individuals who don't like chocolate, but she talks about, oh, I hate chocolate so much.
It comes up over and over and over and over, and it's supposed to be like, oh my gosh, she's so weird. She's not like all the other girls. She doesn't like chocolate. It's like, I don't care. Tell me more about the horror.
And that just reminds me of in the opening for, I believe, cycle 17 and 18 of America's Next Top Model, the All-Star cycle and then the British Invasion cycle. There's a point at the end where I think the models get into a food fight, and at the end, it's Tyra, and she, I believe, has some whipped cream on her cheek, and she eats it, and then she goes like, want some to the camera or something like that. And I'm sure it has maybe something to do with that, or maybe she wanted to be whimsical, and what's more whimsical than whipped cream kind of thing.
Yeah, all Tookie eats is whipped cream. Like, all we see her eat is whipped cream.
Pretty much. And, I remember when Tyra told a story about Komora Lee Simmons, I believe, and she said that, or I believe Komora Lee was talking about how when she was in her modeling days, if she wanted to eat something to be full because, the unhealthy body standards for models, what she would do was she would eat whipped cream because it's filling, but it doesn't have a lot of calories to it, is I believe what she said, but it might relate to that kind of thing. And it's like, oh, she's so thin because she only eats whipped cream, where it feels like you're eating a lot, but it doesn't have that many calories to it.
Okay, what else did I want to say?
Say what you need to say.
The catwalk. The what is it called?
Oh, I feel like it is like the catwalk corridor.
Catwalk corridor. There you go.
Oh gosh. Is everything still recording?
Just making sure, yeah. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Well, not in Modelland.
Not in Modelland. So.
Oh, yeah. And also, like, trigger warning for, like, drugs.
Yeah. Basically, just trigger warning for everything.
Yeah.
I'm sure Spencer is. Well, I'm sure we've put, like, a trigger warning all at the top of the video version. But yeah. I'm sorry. This is for young girls, and it's so triggering.
And the reason why I say that is because the catwalk corridor is basically a punishment for models behaving badly. And basically one of the cats comes up to the 15-year-olds and is like, hey, do you want some drugs?
Oh, hey, by the way, we didn't travel yet.
To 2011.
So no, I'm gonna travel to Modelland.
No, why?
Woo!
The ride is fun, but why? Insert the sound effects here.
You know where we are? We're on top. We're close to the top of the mountain. We're at that one part.
Oh, can we see the lake from here?
We can see everybody's favorite monster boy.
Yay!
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I would love to. I can't wait for the sci-fi movie on the Sci-Fi Channel about this individual.
So yeah, there's a whole scene with like models that are too arrogant and they have drug problems, I guess. So they get turned into cats and banished for a little while. It's weird. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, there's no actual punishment. They just get turned to cats and have to spend time with the other cats.
It just kind of feels like Tyra calling out a bunch of other models that I don't understand the references to. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like it's in there to call out somebody that I can't put my finger on. But let's talk about the symbol monster. So after Tookie, the not favorite child, gets chosen to go to Modelland, her mother, who again hates her. Oh, do we want to...
Or do we want to talk about the state of their house, or the fact that Miracle likes dancing, or the fact that the models hate actresses with a passion?
The models hate actresses because Tyra Banks hates actresses, even though she is an actress, which I'm confused about. But I was going to talk about the body horror of what happened to the father, Crispy.
Oh, and it's so detailed, and it's just
so detailed.
like
He was a trapeze artist who like fell and like gruesomely lost his eye, like got impaled and all this stuff.
Or he fell, but he landed perfectly. But when he went to do a bow, there was a spike.
Yeah. Yep. So he has one eye. Anyway, that's really not in relation to anything. I just wanted them to know.
Yeah.
So Creamy, the mother, and Miracle, pay a guy to trek them up the mountain themselves because a lot of stupid people in this world think that they can just climb their way up to Modelland and they all end up dying. But not Creamy.
She is very
knows,
confident.
Yeah, Creamy knows a weird amount about Modelland and about the way up this treacherous mountain to Modelland. To the point where they outlive, like, all of the rest of their company that they're with, like, as they're going up the mountain. You can tell this next part of the story.
Or should I start with them, like, starting, or basically, there's a small group, there's the guide, there's the gizzard that goes with them. There's also two sets of mothers and daughters, I believe.
Yeah. Also, Creamy has an emotional support doll.
Oh yeah.
That she makes the guy put a shot in her butt. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah, for the diseases.
Yeah.
And and it's talking about how Creamy loves this doll, and I believe
more than her own child, literally.
Yeah, and I'm sure and the doll's name is Bellissima.
Yes, Bellissima.
Oh, and sorry, just real quick, going back to the house thing. Basically, their house is in a state of disarray where Creamy just buys all new beautiful things, but then like just lets them like fall apart so she can buy fresh bananas, and other important things. But yeah, so it's basically. Yeah, these 8 individuals, and Creamy brings a tent to protect herself. She's very confident in her abilities, so it's like, and Miracle's being dragged along, and and Creamy's like, don't dance, Miracle, be a model. But
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and she says data, and it's just like,
Not the mother, the little sister.
yeah, the miracle. And so they're trekking up this mountain, and one of the individuals that goes with them, I believe her name is Abigail Good.
Oh, this poor girl.
Basically, this character and her mother, they're just described as being hairy all
it.
over.
And her mother's name is Harriet.
And people are like disgusted with them, essentially. People talk about how grossed out they are by them just because they have a lot of hair.
Yeah, which feels like a bad move just because, especially if you're pointing this towards younger girls. Some of us girls have had to deal with, have extra hair than what is the impossible beauty standard. I remember one episode of Hannah Montana where they were making fun of Miley Cyrus for having like peach fuzz on her lip, and for the rest of my life I was like, do I have peach fuzz on my lip?
Oh no.
So it's one of those things where it's like it will implant in a little kid's brain that like, ooh, extra hair, a normal thing to have, is gross.
Yeah. And also I think and then the other mother-daughter duo, the daughter like Creamy and the arrogant daughter kind of take digs at each other, but the mom is like, I'm so young and beautiful, but she's older. But I don't know if she's related to I can't remember, because there was the woman who is like, I'm older, but I'm still beautiful enough to go into Modelland. And then there was the character who was taking digs at Creamy the whole time that Creamy set a trap with. Like Creamy fully set a trap and basically caused the unaliving of someone.
Oh, she used them as human bait. Yeah. Do you want to talk about what they were sacrificed to?
To set this scene, Creamy whispers in the guy's ear that's like, hey, we need to find this lake. And the guy's like, are you sure? And she's like, yes. And so they go to this lake and she's like, oh, the lake has healing properties. It'll make you young and beautiful. And so the person who's been taking digs at her, or the person Creamy doesn't like, she immediately like goes to swim in this lake, and there's like a ring of something in the middle of this lake. I can't remember what it was, but there's a ring of something, and once the person makes it to the center of the lake, the stuff in the ring slowly sinks down, and what appears out of the water is the symbol monster. And the symbol monster is basically a conglomerate of symbols with like jagged symbol teeth, but they have hands all over their back playing the symbols. And
so they eat people, but they eat everything but the arms. They keep the arms, and the arms add to them. They add the arms into their like conglomerate of being. Conglomerate of Being would be a weird name for a band, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, if some British punk band wants conglomerate. Hey, out there, hello, how's everybody doing out there? We're Conglomerate of Being. Woo. And so basically the symbol monster eats two of these characters that Creamy doesn't like, and then tries to go for Miracle, but Creamy stands in front of it and is like, you will not, or sorry for saying like again, and says, you will not eat my daughter. And the symbol monster turns and walks away. But the funny thing about that moment is because Avery was reading this chapter, and I kid you not, basically she's reading this book and is just deadpan like, oh, and the symbol monster turns away and says, okay, Creamy, and slumps back into the water. And I'm sitting here like, Creamy knows the monster, it's all a conspiracy. And Avery's just going, no, I'm kidding, the monster didn't say that. And I was just like, but that would be so good if it did.
The fact that you believed that it would say that says something about Modelland. Yeah. The fact that that's plausible in Modelland, that the thing is just like, okay, and then just like walks away after eating two people and using their arms to like play the symbols on its head.
Yeah.
Stephen King is reading this book going, damn it, Tyra.
I can't make the symbol monster for my next book that I've already written.
Yikes.
And then later on, when we cut back to Creamy and crew, because, we go back to Tookie's fun times in Modelland, and we cut back and there's another argument that happens where I kind of misinterpret what happens, but Abigail, the hairy individual, is just so fed up. She takes a knife and I'm like, but she shaves her entire body
with the knife, which is impressive.
Yeah. And she's described as being like one of the most beautiful people without the hair.
She did the let your hair down and take your glasses off trope, but it's just like, shave off all your hair.
Exactly. she's the one-dimensional female character in a comedy. Just take off the glasses, pull down the hair, and then she's a supermodel.
It's so funny to me that Tyra said on her book tour for Modelland that she has a passion for making every girl feel like they are beautiful for like some reason that they always hated about themselves. Because I'm like, then what is America's Next Top Model?
Oh, there's a photo shoot in cycle 15 where basically the models are in bikinis and they basically have to write the word that they were called most when they were younger, where one contestant, she's lesbian and one of and her word is queer, or her word is queer.
Oh.
And she had to write that on her body, and she had a really emotional response. But then they had a power word, and hers was free, and it was that was very beautiful. But then there was one contestant that was super skinny, that they were like, or sorry for saying like again, they were going, you look not healthy. And we're going to bully you because you don't look healthy, and you need to maybe have some avocado, or Tyra literally tells her, maybe you can have some avocado with some bread and butter, or something like that. And, get to a healthy weight. And I'm just like,
helpful. Thank you, Tyra.
Sorry for saying like again, I'm sorry. But yes. So basically Abigail shaves her whole body, but it doesn't matter because huge fireballs come through and take out the guide, Abigail, the mom. The Gizzard disappears, but then we don't hear from Creamy and Miracle until later on in the book. So that's the adventures of the mountain. And it's kind of, everyone's thinking, oh, how did Creamy, find her way up the mountain? What's going on?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, Gabe.
Are we? Are we?
So I'm trying to think about like what else happens, but the book really has no plot. Like the plot is Modelland exists and everyone else is worse off for it.
Yes. Oh, we need to talk about the bestosterones.
Oh God.
Or as we like to call the male models, bestostehimbros. Sorry for saying like again, but we call them the bestostehimbros because, I believe the himbros end up being the most likable because they're
great. They're super great. We love them.
Oh, and also when I think of Bravo, I think of Tyson Beckford because in cycle 17, Tyra is saying, oh, we're going to do a trailer for Modelland. And Tyson Beckford plays Bravo. And of course, Tyra plays Chucky.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they have the scene where Bravo's like, sorry for saying like again, Bravo's wiping something off her lip. And Tyra literally puts her mouth on Tyson Beckford's thumb and starts sucking on it.
I'll have you talk about that a whole episode with the Modelland episode after we're done with everything else. But basically, the Bestostabros. Is that actually what they're called? We called them Bestostahimbros so long that I now don't know what they're actually called.
I think it's Bestostabros.
Okay. It's supposed to be like testosterone.
It's like bestosterone.
It's bestosterone.
Yeah, that's the name of their school.
Okay. With the Bestostabros being the guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So Tookie falls for this guy named Bravo, who's a Bestostabro. Bestostabros are kind of the male Intoxibellas. They come from the male version of Modelland, but not really because the girls are told that the guys are all just accessories, which I think is supposed to be female empowering, but it just feels sad. It just feels weird. To be like, hey, you see those people over there? Those are accessories.
They're not important. They're from the lesser model school, the men.
Yeah, it's like the most like nothing feminism you've ever seen in your life. But anyway, Bravo is perfect because of course he is. That man, they're only allowed to eat protein at Bestosterone. Like literally, like he's jealous. Like Tookie's like eating crackers at one point. And he's like, man, I wish I got to eat crackers. I just get to eat protein. That's it.
And that doesn't cause any health concerns.
Wouldn't you die?
There is a thing called protein poisoning.
Yeah, wouldn't you die if you just tried to eat protein?
I think so. I remember on Naked and Afraid, there was a plot point where they had Impala meat, but nothing else. And one of the guys had to be tapped from the challenge because of digestive issues.
Great.
So yeah, they can cause a lot of problems.
She also
with
feels like
protein.
she's cheating on Theophilus, even though Theophilus barely knows she's alive.
Yeah, there's a lot of, oh, should I, shouldn't I? And everyone, and we're just going, yes, you are, because we know how this plot works.
It's also, at one point, once they're actually kind of sort of together, he brings her not flowers, but whipped cream, because of course he does. But that's not my favorite thing that he does in the book. We all know what my favorite thing that he does.
The best us to him bros. This is the best part of the book. I'm like, yes, bros supporting bros.
I wish I could have read a whole chapter of this scene going down, because what happens is Tookie and Bravo have to wrestle each other half naked, as kids do in the school of Tyra Banks' brain. What happened? So they basically get into a fight. I don't remember how they get into it. I don't remember how it gets personal.
I feel like Zarpessa got involved. Like, who would, or sorry for saying
But basically, like, she gets mad at him, and then he says he never loved her, and that he was just trying to, like, play a prank, which was not true.
Didn't Zarpessa say, oh, the only reason that he's dating you is because someone told him, or because he's giving you attention because someone else told him to?
So then she beats the shit out of him, and she goes on this rant about, like, what she wants the perfect guy in her life to do. And she says, he's gonna, oh God, what does she even say? She's like, it's
gonna be during a sunset in front of a field of golden flowers, and he's gonna have written on his chest,
Tookie, I love you more than anything in life, and blah, 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 blah. And it went on and on and on, and she's just kicking the crap out of this poor guy. That's like, what did I do? What do I do now? And so then she's convinced, because people don't talk to each other, because that wouldn't be dramatic, that he hates her. And that he never loved her, and so she leaves, and she doesn't hear from him, and, like, the whole, like, climax of the book happens, and then, which the climax of the book is basically...
I mean, it's probably the most interesting part of the book, in my opinion, because I was very emotionally invested in what happened.
We'll come back to that, but basically, after all the important high-stakes stuff happens, she comes back. This bro has his other bros from Testosterone, and they all take their shirts off in the middle of a sunset, and it says, Tookie, I love you more than life. And he's like, we tried to fit the whole speech that you gave me on there. Believe me, we tried, but we could only fit this much on there. And so we decided that this means that he had to run to his bros and be like, because all of these characters are just, like, personified as, like, gym rat chads, right? They're just like, oh, bro, I got you, bro. Like, you know the old Planet Fitness commercials of the I lift things up and put them down? That's basically these guys. So this guy had to go to his other bros and be like, yo, bros, I need your help, bros. I messed up real bad somehow, bros. And they're just like, oh, yeah, we got you, bro.
What do you need us to do?
He's like, I need you to take your shirts off, bros. And they're like,
okay, bro. What?
We got some paint. Here you go. Let's try to write out everything that she said. Do you remember what she said, bro? And then they couldn't get it to fit. And so they're just like, well, what if you just wrote the important part, bro? And then they all went out there to support their homie.
I mean, I think, in the toxicity of the book, it's nice to know that toxic masculinity was not really a part of the book.
It's true.
Yeah. Those are our favorite characters, the best to him bros.
They have they might have names, but I don't remember any of them, except for Bravo, obviously.
I'm sure one's name was Ted or Ned at some point.
I'm sure at one point we hear their names, but it's so irrelevant to everything else. So anyway, they get back together. He gives her whipped cream, and I think he pour the whipped cream into her mouth.
Yes.
It's so cringe.
Tyra, she's 15. And not to mention, after they have a mastication class with the didgeridoo professor, and they're basically they have rope tied around them, and they're lifted up, and they go into these containers that basically have their favorite food. Stuff happens. Tookie has whipped cream all over her, and there's one point where they go out to a window, and everyone's looking at the best him bros working out and all that stuff, and she's looking at him, and he's looking, and she's going, oh, he's looking at me, and he goes to make a motion at his nose, and she she wipes her nose and looks and sees that like sorry for saying like, and Cool Whip has mixed with her mucus. And so she's going, oh, he embarrassed me in front of everyone. I hate him so much. Those best off to him bros.
I texted you a picture because my dad was like, hey, we have ice cream, Avery. So he brought me chocolate cookie crumble, which is like my favorite ice cream, chocolate ice cream with whipped cream on it. And I took a picture and I sent it to Gabe and I said, Tookie would be so conflicted.
But I saw that and I was just going, no. And I remember looking at my fridge one day and seeing whipped cream and just going, all I could think of was the mucus Cool Whip. And I could just imagine the color of it too. And I'm just thinking, oh, that's so gross.
Well, and they sell a Cool Whip that's like Reese's flavored and it's like this weird yellowish brown. And so like, especially if you ever saw that, it'd be like, ugh, the mucus.
Oh, I can just feel the texture of it. Not of the mucus Cool Whip, just Cool Whip. And it just makes me feel weird. I'm just... I people do not understand the feelings we have towards Cool Whip now is so weird.
It's almost completely ruined for me. I couldn't eat whipped cream for a couple of weeks after we finished the book.
I still need to just, go through Cool Whip therapy and just put a bunch of it on some foods and eat it, no matter what it is, just as long as it's not by itself. And I'm trying to remember her name, the individual with the headbang aura with this tragic backstory, because we learned Dylan and her new friend's backstory. But I remember when we first meet this character, the individual with the headbang aura, which is basically headphones. I remember, or she was very kind and she helps Tookie because they all have to run to get somewhere. And she helps out Tookie and I'm like, oh, I hope they bring her back. And they did. And it's like,
when they go through the zip zap and it's literally just zippers that you can like unzip to get to like multi-dimensional pockets. It's really weird. It's a lot.
Yeah. And she helps her with that. And that's cool. But is it not, does her name start with an N? I feel like her name starts with an N. Sorry for saying like again.
You're good. I'm genuinely trying to think and I don't remember.
Is this time for the Google or should we just keep going?
You can go ahead and Google.
Okay. What can we could talk about Dylan and her tragic backstories and then Tookie's random memory where it's just kind of, that was your memory that you decided to show us after we showed you our tragic backstories. Because, more body horror. There are 3 women attached by a beehive hairdo.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's
so much I'm forgetting about.
That's where we learn about the Dylan and her other friends, their backstories. Sorry, I'm looking up the themes. Oh my gosh. Oh, fantastic racism.
What?
That's literally fantastic. I think it's like fantasy racism.
Quote from Tropedia. Fantastic racism. The staff of Modelland really don't like actresses. It's especially hilarious if you've ever watched Top Model, since Tyra frequently makes the girls go through acting challenges, and we'll mention how acting can be very important to a model, both helping with a modeling career and giving a model opportunities once a model's very short shelf life is over. Also, Tookie keeps referring to a being that has a hand for a head as it, even though she/he is revealed to be human, and the gizzards seem to be always chaotic evil. Yep. Yeah. I don't argue with any of that.
Sorry, I'm trying to find. Oh, it also has the for fantasy counterpart culture. Gaudien is Spanish, Trey Jolie is French, Beijingle is Chinese, Metopia is probably California, Terra Bossa Nova is Brazil, Chakra is India, Strip Town is Las Vegas, Polinian is Alaska, Quato is probably an African country. Candelabra sounds like a stereotypical view of Middle Eastern countries. Nordensi seems to be Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Cappuccina.
I forgot about this. There's a country called Nordenswee.
Oh gosh, isn't that
And
where
the Likey sisters are from
the
there.
there are four sisters that are the Likey sisters, and they're considered to be one person and basically speak
In a
one
hive mind.
Yes.
But they all speak like the Swedish chef. I can't even do the voice that's supposed to be done. But they're from a country called Norden, Sweden. That made me laugh for days after we read it.
Oh gosh, I can't remember, but Angelica, who was the one who cut her head on the zippers, is from, I think, like Iceland or something. I just enjoyed her name.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I think Desperada is the name of the promiscuous friend of Zarpessa.
Yes, because she's desperate.
Yep. Did not do the research. The acting profession is completely unlike what Tyra claims to be. Oy vey.
Well, Tyra Banks as a person, and it shows a lot in this book, exudes to me a very big mix of like, I was a bullied outcast as a kid, but also incredibly mean girl energy.
Yeah, it's just I feel like there was supposed to be some character development where I had a tragic backstory and so I lash out because I don't know how to deal with my feelings about this and I felt powerless and now I get to feel the power, but I know that that's wrong. But we don't get to I know that that's wrong.
No.
I'm trying to where's the name of the character with the headbanger? I'm she likey, I'm her likey, I'm I likey, I'm me likey.
Me likey.
Oh my goodness.
So stupid.
And then there's Jen Zhen.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to sorry, Spencer, you can cut all this out.
I'm trying to think of anything else I want to point out before we get into like the big finale.
I feel like we're missing some. Oh, we can talk about how when we see a memory of Tookie's past where she's just like, oh, I want to. Oh, Kamalini. Kamalini is the name.
Kamalini, right?
Yeah, she's and I feel as though she's kind of based off of Anshul from Cycle 7 of America's Next Top Model, mainly because she talks about her weight and she's almost described as being of Indian descent.
Yeah, because she's from Chakra, which is definitely not guys. It's not supposed to be India.
Yeah, and Anshul's storyline on Cycle 7 was she was gaining weight, or she was gaining weight because you saw her eat a bunch of eggs one morning.
Not the eggs.
And also Kamalini talks about how she doesn't know how beautiful she is, and Anshul's storyline is she doesn't know how beautiful she is because when Anshul goes to the casting episode, when she goes in front of the judges, she's wearing blue contact lenses because in Anshul describes as basically lighter color eyes are more beautiful.
Oh.
And so and everyone's going, oh, we're telling her how beautiful she is, but she doesn't believe it. She's so not confident. And one contestant's like, oh, she's becoming less beautiful to me because she doesn't believe in her beauty or something like that. And so
I hate when people are like, hey, it's your problem because you're not more confident. What's wrong with you? It's like, wow, I feel so confident now. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. And Anshul had an interview with Oliver Twixt where she talks about her weight, and she was saying how casting agents wanted her to be, or they're like, we want you to be this size. Sorry for saying like again, but Anshul, basically she was a point where she was so thin, the only way that she could get her hips smaller would be if they like shaved down her hip bones. God. Because they were asking her to be that thin. And so she's talking about how all that experience. And so I feel as though that's kind of where Tyra got some of Kamalini's kind of personality traits coming from. And her sad backstory is she wanted to help out her family because there's a side of her family that wasn't very wealthy. And there's an accident where a part of the set falls on a good portion of her family and only one of her cousins survives.
Yeah, it gets really intense.
Yeah, that's one of the really dark moments. And there's not really any conclusion to it. Dylan and Tookie give her a hug and we never hear about it again.
That character is really underutilized. I mean, they're all underutilized, but even by Modelland standards, that character is really underutilized.
Yeah. And
Tookie's friends just all disappear after like a certain point, and we never see them again. There's no resolution.
Yeah, during the climax, there's a point where the room where it shows your memories, there's an earthquake or heavy winds or something, and they all run out of the room, and that's the last time we see them throughout the entire book, and there's still 100 pages left.
Anyway, you want to start getting into the really intense like last 100 pages, 100 or 70 page, whenever that is.
Or basically one of Tookie's or Tookie sleepwalks basically, and there's a point where she ends up in one of the buildings she's not supposed to be in, and she hears an argument with, I believe, the Belladonna and someone else.
Yeah.
And
isn't it CL or is it not?
I think so. And also CL she's basically being turned into a student again, and she's crying, and she's, trigger warning, she's hurting herself, and Tookie's like, I don't understand. And so skipping ahead, we go to the climax where Creamy has infiltrated Modelland, and Miracle is there too, but she just kind of does her own thing. And so basically, and the Belladonna is really worried because the Belladonna and Creamy have a past together, and through a flashback we learn about the past. And so what happened was we bring back the character Wingtips.
Have we mentioned Wingtips yet tonight?
I mentioned him once when I was saying, oh, we hear about something early on, but then don't hear about it till later, like Wingtips, and you're going, we'll get to that. Oh, and we also learn about the 3 obelisks that had randomly turned up in the middle of Metopia.
Oh, yeah, that was so important. I didn't even remember that. There's a lot that I'm already forgetting, and it wasn't even that long ago that we read this book. But yeah, continue on. So Wingtips is this dude back from Metopia.
Yes, and basically the reason why he's called Wingtips is because of a shoe that he carries. It's
a wingtip shoe.
It's a wingtip shoe, and that's why he's called Wingtips. And Tookie has an interaction with him early on, but we both completely forgot about it because when he's brought up again, we're going, Wingtips?
It's not good exposition when the big reveal is like, and this character is dun 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 Wingtips, and you're like, who?
And so basically we learn about Creamy and the Belladonna's past together. And also this it's called the ooh-ah. I remember that's where you learn about the memories, because my favorite line in this entire book, I still think I have a screenshot of or a photo of it on my phone, but my favorite line in this entire book is, Nars, get here now, come quickly, there's an intruder in my ooh-ah. And it was the funniest thing that I have read in this entire book, but it's probably not meant to be funny. But
the building is called the ooh-ah, but when she yells, Nars, get in here, there's an intruder in my ooh-ah. I was crying. If you watch the VOD back, I was literally just like, I had to take my glasses off because like my eyes were burning because like, I don't even think I was wearing makeup, but I think leftover makeup from the day before was running into my eye. Just being like, it was so funny. But anyway.
Oh, it's during the quote unquote final exams where there are the third years or the 7th years, the upperclassmen are basically battling it out to see who's going to become an Intoxibella, and so everyone's distracted, and the Belladonna's going, Nars, get in here now, there's an intruder in my ooh-ah. And they basically find a memory of Creamy and the Belladonna's past, and there's also a mannequin there who's also involved, who is also their friend, who was turned into a mannequin. And what happens is the Belladonna, while she's in Modelland, becomes pregnant, and that's a problem because I believe the Belladonna's mom is currently in charge of Modelland during that time.
Yeah, she's the Belladonna.
And she makes a deal where she's able to, or the belladonna is able to stay in Modelland if she gives the child to her father, and the belladonna agrees.
The baby's father.
The
not
baby's
like
father,
her
yeah.
Father.
Sorry.
No, I know.
Yeah,
Just
no.
for sorry, my brain.
And there's basically a point where, is that before or after the belladonna's like, no, my baby? Or I think that's later because Creamy betrays her shockingly. And so basically the belladonna wants to go and find her baby, and she convinces Creamy to go with her because
Creamy knew everything because she was in Modelland before. Yes.
And also they have their mannequin friend is there, and she stood up to the previous leader of Modelland and was turned into a mannequin for her insubordination. Yes, thank you. and and so basically the belladonna and Creamy make their way down the mountain. It's never explained how they made it down the mountain, but I would have loved to have seen their interaction with the symbol monsters and how Creamy knows so much about it. But it's just, they hop over the fence, their faces get old, they go, and they see Wingtips and the belladonna's daughter. And Wingtips is doing fine.
Wingtips is the belladonna's baby daddy.
Yes. And Wingtips is having a great time with his daughter.
Yeah.
And he has her in a shoebox, and, everything's going good. He feels great. And so Creamy and the belladonna make their way down, and the belladonna reunites with Wingtips and her daughter, and it's just a wonderful time. But then Creamy gets jealous, and Creamy's like, no, or sorry for saying, like, Creamy's talking to the belladonna going, and I believe her name is Bella, but excuse me. And so Creamy's going, oh, but we need to go back. You need to be in charge. I want to be young looking again. And the belladonna is going, we'll go back later. I'm just having a fun time with my baby daddy and my daughter. This is great. And then Creamy takes it too far for the umpteenth time in the book.
Trigger warning. Sexual assault.
She pretty much corners Wingtip, and it's like sorry for saying, like, it's the scene in Hairspray when the one lady singing Good Baltimore to Tracy's dad, and at the end of the song, Edna comes into the room and, she's going, oh, your wife. Oh, you said she was out, like that kind of moment with Wingtips, but a little bit more gross.
A little bit more forward than that.
A little bit more forward. She basically is going, oh, you don't need her when you can have me. And he's going, no.
She forces herself onto him. It's basically sexual assault.
Pretty much. And the belladonna comes in and she sees this and she believes Creamy, her supposed best friend. And basically she is tricked into giving up ever seeing her daughter again, ever seeing her baby daddy again, and becoming the leader of Modelland, and basically learns of her friend's betrayal, and there's nothing she can do about it. And so it's this tragic story. And then we learn at the end of the flashback, we learn the name of the belladonna's child. Who's that model?
Who's that? Guess that Pokemon. You know the Vine where it's like, guess that Pokemon. It's Pikachu. It's Clefairy.
Fudge.
Yeah.
Guess that Pokemon. Pikachu. It's CL.
Oh my god.
And CL's just going, what?
The CL is the belladonna's secret kid.
Yep, and the belladonna didn't know this until just now.
Did she not?
Or, no, wait, she did know. Never mind. But she didn't say anything.
Yeah, she just kept treating her like shit. You remember why her name is CL?
I do not.
So the belladonna is like, CL's like, you never loved me. You could have come back and gotten me and all this stuff. And she's like, no, CL, you don't understand. I named you that because when I look at you, I see love. That's why you're named CL. And by the way, her name is spelled C-I tilde, but it's a tilde, but it's used as an asterisk. I don't know. it's a squiggly asterisk specifically. CI
Tilde.
I'm sorry. I said asterisk, didn't I?
Yeah.
As a dash. So it's like CI stylized dash capital L. That's her name. Somehow that derives from C Love, which is the dumbest thing. I thought Tookie was the weirdest name that I was going to hear, and then I thought Creamy was the weirdest name I was going to hear.
I thought Theophilus was the weirdest name I was.
And then I thought first name Bella, last name Donna was going to be the weirdest name I ever heard. And no, all of them do not compare to CL.
Yep. And then I feel like I'm missing something, but then the Belladonna and Creamy get into a fight, and the Belladonna is wearing a very spiky outfit.
Yes.
And there's a point, I believe, where they fall over, and we learn that Creamy has been stabbed. Dun, dun, dun. And, you know, throughout, Tookie's trying to stand up to her mother, and finally at the end, when Creamy is lying in the hospital bed trying to get through her critical wound, Tookie's going, "Oh, I still love you,"
and we're all going, no,
Tookie. But she's not scared of her anymore, but she also still loves her.
Yeah, it's a lot. And we never get any resolution, because that was clearly supposed to be a book 2 and 3 kind of problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we get kind of a wrap up, or we get a little bit of closure between Tookie and Zarpessa, where they're still rivals, but Zarpessa respects her in a way, even though Tookie has been very kind to Zarpessa in a way, because she doesn't reveal, or only to her 3 BFFs, that Zarpessa eats from the garbage. And then there's the part where Zarpessa yells at Dylan because Dylan's like, "You need to stop being so mean." But yeah, we see Zarpessa at the end of the book, but we don't see Piper, Dylan, and Shiraz at the end.
No, at the end of the book, spoiler alert. After all the other spoiler alerts, I'm sure you're going to rush right out and buy this book. So CL is the new Belladonna. What happens to the old Belladonna?
She's kind of in prison and has to look at herself in the mirror, the ugly mirror.
Okay.
And she has to look at herself, and I think isn't she in a somewhat of a comatose state? But then she is released to CCL, and then she goes, "I love you so much, my daughter. I will talk to you when my sentence is over."
Yeah, something like that. But then anyway, CL being next in line, becomes we think they're gonna behead her, but then they don't. Then they appoint her the new Belladonna. So she's basically like God Emperor of this world.
Oh yeah, isn't there one of the professors that doesn't like her, but then she is the new ruler, and they're like, "Oh, I respect you now." That's not NARS, but isn't it oh gosh, I just saw their name. The one that starts with a G. I can't remember, but there's one that didn't respect her, but then does at the last moment. I can't. Oh.
It's not important to remember their name. Anyway.
Anyway. Oh, and also the obelisk. The whole reason why CL decided. Oh, there's also some controversy because we know that it's hinted that Piper, Dylan, or basically Tookie, Piper, Dylan, and Shiraz aren't supposed to be there, but they aren't supposed to be there for different reasons, because Piper, Dylan, and Shiraz were specifically chosen by CL to be there because they reminded CL of her old friends.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And then Tookie is there for a different reason, because Miracle was supposed to be chosen, but then Belladonna saw that and wanted to spite Creamy and decided to take Tookie to Modelland. So it's kind of, that fact is interesting. But yeah, CL had 3 friends that Shiraz, Dylan, and Piper reminded her of, but they had unfortunately passed away, and CL blamed herself. And so she buried them and had these obelisks there to kind of honor them. And when she was apologizing and hurting herself, she was basically apologizing to them. And it was kind of her form of punishment for herself for doing that to them. And she has to go down the path of self-forgiveness for for that. Or I think she wanted to bring them to Modelland, but it didn't end well for them, I believe is what happened.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, that's this is supposed to be a kid again. It's supposed to be a kid's book. It's very like the YA books get really dark, but like this one is just not even well done. What happened on the Modelland episode of America's Next Top Model?
That was basically, or oh, well, on Cycle 17 they did a whole trailer for it where Blood Orange.
What?
Because they always constantly talk about the smell of blood oranges, and I just remember Allison holding a blood orange because Tyra likes to use food as descriptors either of smell or of a color.
She does it for people a lot. I don't know what that's about, but every single person is like, she had caramel colored skin. She had cappuccino colored skin. Her skin was as white as, I don't even know, like everything is like, everybody's like either like compared to a souffle or a, I don't remember exactly what it was, but everything's a food. And it's just like, it's strange.
And basically, they use the scent of blood orange a lot. And there's a scene during the trailer in Cycle 17 where Allison, one of the contestants, is holding a blood orange. And so I just thought of that. But basically, the trailer was the contestants acting out different scenes from the book. And there's a point where they're going, like, I'm Laura, I'm Tukey, I'm Allison, I'm Tukey, I'm Angelie, I'm Tukey, I'm Lisa, and I'm Tukey. And stuff like that. And there's the scene where, you know,
Tyra goes, I'm Tyra and I'm Tukey.
Yeah. Yes. And there's the scene where they're running in their gladiator armor. I think that's what they were supposed to be doing, the gladiator fighting in. There's the scene where Tyra sucks on Tyson Beckford's thumb because she got a splinter and she had wood on her face and he was getting it off he sucked on her thumb, I think, at one point. And then there's the scene where Laura's digging through the trash to look for the Tukey pen. And they kept saying it looked comedic, like an SNL skit, but it looked like Laura in dim lighting looking through the garbage. And then there's a point where I believe Angelie's running down a walkway. I think cats. Oh, there's also the cats with human faces. We
talked about that briefly, but we forgot to mention they have human faces.
Oh, in the front and back cover of Modelland, you can see illustrations of everything that's described in Modelland. When you first see them, you're going, what is this? But then you look and you're like, oh, sorry for saying like again. You look and you go, oh, I remember this. Huh. And basically in Cycle 17, that's what they did. And then in Cycle 18, Tyra is going, oh, we're in Toxabella's. Let's wear these corny little capes. And I'm going to give you your I'm going to give you Intoxabella names or you're 30 never, you're Gamatondra because you have long legs. You're Zagalicious because you don't zig, you zag. And you're Excite to buy because you have a great personality. And it's just, Tyra was using Top Model to launch her brand. And, you know, again, going back to Cycle 3 of America's Next Top Model, they eliminated a contestant for having future plan or using modeling to break into the fashion industry to become a fashion manufacturer.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes, and they eliminated her. But then 3 cycles later, they're going, what are you going to do after you're a model? And it's just...
Isn't there tea, though, that girl was the one that, like, found her, like, trope list or whatever, and that's the real reason they got rid of her?
I don't think she mentioned it to anybody, but she saw that it was going, oh, okay, and kind of her head wasn't in it anymore. She saw that she
was being, like, racially stereotyped, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. And so it's just, oh gosh, and then the individual from Cycles 1 and 3 who's now in jail for the rest of his life that was brought up, that I should have brought up in the podcast, but that was 3 hours and 10 minutes long.
Who?
Anon John. He was in Cycles 1 and 3. In Cycle 3, he was at the party and she was there and they wanted her to come talk to him.
Right. Oh. I think you did briefly mention something about that, but I wasn't sure who it was.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch as of recording, as we're sitting down recording this right now, tomorrow the America's Next Top Model episode comes out. So we talk about the first 3 cycles. So tomorrow I'll have to listen to it back. Spencer will send it to me and I'll listen to it and see if you mention anything. But yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, and so I could see after watching all 24 cycles of America's Next Top Model and listening to all the Oliver Twixt interviews, there were points where I could see America's Next Top Model in there. And again, Tyra should have leaned into the horrors of the modeling industry. That would have made it so much more interesting and a lot more dynamic instead of the amusement park gone wrong.
Yeah, I would have liked to see her just kind of commit to that more because the parts where I felt like she was genuinely, like, whether she wanted to or not, making like a very harsh criticism about the modeling world, I felt like those were the parts of the book where I was like, if it could just be this would actually be kind of good.
Exactly.
Like a horror novel about like almost like Black Swan, how Black Swan is a horror movie about like what, women are put through in like unattainable standards and things like that. Like I'm picturing that, but for Modelland, it could have been really great.
Yeah, and it's just, oh, the people at the tippy top of it all are they seem so glamorous, but everybody below them is, or it would be more interesting if it was just in Model Land where things were bad for everybody, because, outside it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is great, but being in Toxabella is just the peak of everything.
Yeah, you have like a good life, and then you have to, when you're like, man, I want to go to Modelland, and you get there, and then there's like all this kind of toxic shit going on. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, instead of everything is terrible unless you're a model. If you're an actress, you stink. If don't dance, don't don't or don't be yourself.
How dare you?
Or be yourself to the fullest degree. Oh gosh, and then there's the point where Zarpessa insults Dylan for Dylan's weight, and Dylan it's revealed that Dylan has disordered eating, and so they're all talking about their shortcomings, and Tookie reads she has T-mail jail or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she reads an excerpt from that talking about her self-hatred for herself, and that's kind of supposed to be a bonding moment between all of them.
It's just really sad.
Yeah,
I just feel bad.
and it's just kind of all kind of swept under the rug kind of thing, like sorry for saying, like similar to Dylan's fainting spells and Tookie's sleepwalking, where it's just never brought up, or it's brought up when it's plot relevant and it's never mentioned when it should, or it's just, shouldn't Dylan be passing out at this moment? Shouldn't Tookie be sleepwalking all the time? I don't know. But yeah, inconsistencies, tone shifts, the horror mixed with the YA-esque aesthetic. It's just all a big jumble of wibbly wobbly, all that jazz.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it's just like, I'm glad we read it because I don't even think like we've been filming for over 2 hours. I feel like we can't even capture the essence of like having to sit and read through all 560 whatever pages.
Yes, and just thinking about the body horror and the terminology that's used, and
I love a good horror novel. I really just wish she would have doubled down on that part.
exactly, where it's just or it's just like everyone's body horror, just bring it on. Because people have to change themselves on the fashion industry. So this could just be changing yourself to the nth degree. That would be interesting, but
Well, it's like there's a what is it? Is it there's a Twilight Zone episode about like how everybody looks exactly the same. I haven't seen the episode in ages. Somebody's gonna be like, it's not really it, but I remember the core principle. The core principle is like everybody is made to look exactly the same because like beauty standard. And yeah, it just, there were parts that showed promise, but mostly it was just craziness. And a lot of like trigger warnings and things. But hey, guess what? We're now closing that book.
yay!
We're now officially out of our Modelland era. We have read the whole book on live.
We've had it officially.
I mentioned it in my video about like inappropriate kids books, and now we've given it its own podcast episode / video to live here on the channel forever. So you know what that means? There's nothing else that can be said unless this woman comes out with the second book after all these years.
Oh gosh, can you imagine we are looking at our Instagrams, we see request, and we look, and there's we see a no face profile, and it goes, "We've seen your videos. We would like to talk."
Oh God.
Screen fades to black. Avery and Gabe will return ?
Oh God. I don't know if Tyra Banks, if she ever saw this, would kill us or just like us for talking about her so much.
It might be one of those scenarios where she's going, "Oh, you read the book? That's so great. I'm so happy you read it and gave your thoughts about it and all that jazz." And we're just sitting here going, "Oh, we bashed the book so hard, but you're being so nice to us."
Yeah, and then we'd feel bad. That's the best way to get back at us, Tyra, by the way.
Spoilers.
We're people-pleasing people. We'll feel guilty about it.
That just reminds me on the podcast I listened to called Watch What Crappens, where they watch Ben Mendelker and Ronnie Karam watch Bravo shows, and there are points where they tear these people apart, but then they meet them in real life sometimes, and they're going, "Oh, we met them in real life. They're lovely."
Aww.
But then they're talking about, "Oh, we met Tom Sandoval in real life, Tom Sandoval and Ariana in real life, and Tom Sandoval was nice to us, but he's an a-hole after what he did." Scandoval. If you haven't listened to that episode, check it out.
Yeah, at this point, it'll have been out. That'll be, as of recording this video at this episode, it'll be out 1 week from tomorrow. So by the time they're hearing this, we'll definitely hear it. Hopefully by the time they're hearing this, the writer's strike and the SAG strike are over. But for right now, this is the first podcast we have filmed since the SAG strike happened. So we had a different episode planned. We're still trying to figure out what's okay to talk about in the world of media to support the strike while the strike is going on, and what we feel comfortable talking about. Because obviously the strike is very important to us as people who've worked in the industry for years. So we decided to switch up and try to talk about more general stories. Hopefully they're hearing this by the time everything is out. Everything is over. And hopefully, because the ones that we're, as far as we can tell, the ones that we filmed before are fine to post. I don't think anybody cares about those, as far as I can tell. But we're going to talk about some things that we know are in the clear while we're living in our time through the SAG strike, the WGA strike, that whole era. So, yes, we're going to talk about some more general topics and like reality show topics and things until we get the okay to like talk about something, I don't know, Disney related or whatever. That might be when the strike ends, but either way.
Fingers crossed. And I have something about an anime that I could, if we're truly desperate, that I could talk about. So
there's definitely stuff to talk about. And hopefully by the time they're hearing this, all of this is over. And it doesn't matter. I would love to wake up tomorrow and be like, "Oh, the strike is over? Oh, cool.
We can go back to work."
Woo! So yeah. Support the strike, support the unions. I need to get a picket sign made. I need to make a picket sign, but we're officially on strike. As close as we can be in solidarity on strike with the people actually striking. And yeah, I think that's all we have to say. I think we have finally said all the Modelland things, and we can do that thing. Happens to me all the time where, like, as a content creator, if something is on my mind so heavily, sometimes all you can do is, like, make a video about it, make a piece of content about it, and be like, I said what I had to say. It's over there.
Goodbye. The era is done.
I'm packing it up. I'm moving on.
I only have one photo in my hands, and this photo represents the topic that will be used in a later video. The idea that I will not call will immediately have a video made about them and then pack their belongings and go home. Modelland, you have been eliminated.
And then Modelland cries. Or doesn't, and then gets yelled at for not crying.
or I'll save that for Cycle 4 of America's Next Top Model because I memorized the rant to do a little video for my Instagram. So I won't say it now, but I'll say it later.
You know. But anyway, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to Gabe at Gabriel Custic on YouTube. You can subscribe to me over on YouTube at Avery Talks About Stuff. And of course, find us in most of the podcast places. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week.
Oh, comment, subscribe, or on the YouTube stuff. Share, leave a 5-star review, share with your friends, and talk about us. And we still have to find something in 2011 to do.
Oh no, I just went to the world where Modelland doesn't exist, and we can just sit here and be like, this nice. It doesn't exist.
All right,
we went to Modelland. Oh, no, that's right. I forgot. We went to Modelland. We can go to the place where it doesn't exist, but also look at that symbol monster over there.
I'm gonna take a picture. Click.
It's kind of moving close. It's kind of moving closer. The symbols are getting louder.
Sacrifices. Well.
Oh God! Oh no!
Okay.
Not the dinosaurs! Not the
Steve!
dinosaurs.
No! Oh darn! Sorry, Steve. Oh, don't worry. He's safe in his basket. Thank you for watching.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Yay!
Woo, woo. Yay!
No more symbol monster.
Yay!